Tested! Palm's Pre Plus is the first budget smartphone I've tested. Despite some performance problems, the Pre Plus is the only way to get full smartphone functionality at feature phone prices. For $50 and a 2-year contract, including a monthly data plan, you get a 16GB smartphone that rivals the iPhone, with a few minor flaws. The Pre Plus runs Palm's own WebOS operating system, a fully featured mobile OS that rivals iPhone OS and Android. The key selling point for WebOS is its complete integration between your different calendars, contact lists, and email accounts. Unlike iPhone OS or Android, the Pre Plus's default contacts, calendar, and mail apps will pull all of your personal data into unified views. Your Google Calendar, Exchange Calendar, and Facebook Calendar are all displayed simultaneously in the Calendar app. The same holds true for contacts. The phone shows a unified list with all of your contacts from all of your sources. If you have contacts that are shared between multiple sources, like Gmail and Facebook, the relevant data will be merged into a single contact inside the Pre. I especially dig the email app, which gives you the option of displaying the contacts of all of your mailboxes in a single view, BlackBerry style. While this feature is coming in iPhone OS 4, it's not possible today. Also core to the WebOS experience is multitasking. WebOS uses a card-based metaphor to simplify running multiple open apps. Each application is represented by a single card. You can swipe from side to swap apps, or drag the card off the top of the screen to close an unneeded app. This works reasonably well, especially when combined with the Pre's touch-sensitive bezel and gesture support. By moving your finger in predefined gestures through the gesture area, that little patch of bezel below the screen, you can control common phone tasks, like launching applications or moving back to the previous screen. The Pre Plus's multi-touch screen also supports the usual gestures, pinch to zoom, rotate, and the like. My only complaint about the gestures is that they're introduced very early in the setup process, and I had trouble finding a reference on the phone explaining them later. I ended up finding a page that described them, in depth, using Google on the PC. There's a lot of polish in WebOS and on the Pre Plus, as evidenced by the unobtrusive yet useful notifications that show up on the lock screen. Recent emails, text messages, and calendar appointments show up, then disappear when they're no longer relevant. When you're playing music, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to do on a smartphone with 16GB of memory, music controls also show up on the lock screen. And the Capstone wireless charger, which provides juice to charge the phone through a special desktop block, is rad, even though it's a $50 option. It's well worth the extra money to avoid having to pop off the Pre Plus's flimsy plastic micro USB port every time you want to charge the phone. I'd be remiss to talk about the Pre Plus without mentioning the mobile Hotspot app, a free application that converts the Pre Plus into an internet-connected Wi-Fi hotspot. What would you use that for? Only to connect any device, think your laptop or iPad, to the internet for free! There's no additional charge for the service, although any data you transfer will come out of your unlimited data plan. The only downside? The mobile Hotspot app decimates battery life. I managed to run the battery from 100% to 25% in a little more than 2 hours of mobile hotspot use. It's not a great all-day solution, but it's badass in a pinch and beats paying $60 a month for a MiFi when you're only on the road occasionally. Battery life under normal usage situations was great. In my typical daily testing, I never managed to get the battery below 20%. My only real problem with the Pre Plus is that it's slow. This affects everything from web browsing to the UI element animation. While having a multitasking OS is really handy, the phone really doesn't have the horsepower to run tons of apps in the background, at least without micromanaging the apps that are open at any given time. The 500 MHz ARM Cortex-A8 also hurts web browsing performance, although you could argue that the 3.1-inch 320 by 480 screen is too small for adequate browsing anyway. I even scrolled through the contact list faster than the phone could handle a few times. This bad performance would be a deal breaker on a $150 or $200 phone, but for $50 it's tough to complain. WebOS runs a distant third behind iPhone and Android on the sheer number of apps available in its App Store. Although there aren't as many good free Twitter clients available for WebOS as there are for iPhone or Android, there are many more games in Palm Store than in the Android App Store, including titles from first-party publishers like EA and GameLoft. Palm's App Store is relatively easy to navigate and use, although having to enter your credit card data on the phone's small keyboard does bring the problems I had with the device's hardware keyboard to the forefront. Unlike most other devices that sport hardware keyboards, the Pre Plus's is recessed and cramped. That makes it difficult to hit keys on the left and right sides of the keyboard, at least if your thumbs are as meaty as mine. In the bottom edge of the phone, it's really sharp, especially when the keyboard's extended. The whole package feels flimsy. I've already mentioned the USB port cover, but the phone flexes when you type, not something that makes me feel especially comfortable. I really don't feel as if it would break under normal use, but I like sturdier feeling gear. Palm has ditched its battle to reverse engineer iTunes syncing into the Pre. You can still use the feature if you have iTunes 9.01 or earlier installed, but I was able to get my tunes over to the phone by mounting it in Windows or OS X and dragging and dropping the actual files onto the phone. It's not my preferred method to manage music, but there are a number of third-party apps that will also do the deed. I tested several different combinations of video codecs and containers with no luck. And when I did get video to play, the smaller than iPhone screen didn't really do the movies justice. All in all, the Pre Plus is an interesting entry into the smartphone market. It's definitely not a perfect smartphone, but its hardware keyboard, decent 3-megapixel camera with flash, robust support for calendar, contact, and email integration, and a burgeoning app platform makes it a great way for budget-oriented users to get into the smartphone scene without sacrificing much more than performance. While Palm's future was a bit uncertain earlier this year, the recently announced HP purchase of the company means that you aren't buying into a fire sale and risking a complete lack of support as a result. While there hasn't been an official announcement yet, I'd be stunned if HP didn't support the existing pre-products through their natural life cycle. And the mobile Hotspot app and cool capstone charger are just icing on the WebOS cake.